War Eagle. My name is Eddie Orantes, and I'm the Director of Business Operations for the Office of Alumni Affairs at Auburn University. And for the next 30 minutes, your host of 18 minutes and 56 seconds, the Auburn Alumni Association Speaker Series. We are engaging our alumni and friends more than ever before. We want to thank you. You can find all of our shows by going to aub.ie/1856 series. We also want to hear from you, so ask questions, interact by leaving comments on our Facebook page. We'll do our best to answer them in the half hour that we have together. Today, we will celebrate Creed Day by learning about the history and continued relevance of Auburn's most powerful statement of purpose. Alumni Mike Jernigan, class of 80, Curry Cates, class of 18, and Cole Burton, class of 20, will discuss the history of the Auburn Creed, its author, George Petrie, and how it influences their lives today. But first, let's hear from some amazing Auburn women recite the Creed.
I believe that this is a practical world,
and that I can count only on what I earn.
Therefore, I believe in work, hard work.
I believe in education,
which gives me the knowledge to work wisely,
and trains my mind and my hands to work skillfully.
I believe in honesty and truthfulness,
without which I cannot win the respect
and confidence of my fellow men.
I believe in a sound mind,
in a sound body, in a spirit that is not afraid,
and in clean sports that develop these qualities.
I believe in obedience to law,
because it protects the rights of all.
I believe in the human touch,
which cultivates sympathy with my fellow men,
and mutual helpfulness,
and brings happiness for all.
I believe in my country because it is a land of freedom,
and because it is my own home,
and that I can best serve that country by
doing justly, loving mercy, and walking humbly with my God.
And because Auburn men and women believe in these things.
I believe in Auburn and love it.
Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today we're talking about something that became a creed today, but at one point in time was part of a man's mantra, his ethos, and has been expressed over many generations into what we today call our unified statement. Mike, I'd like to start with you. If you don't mind, please sharing a little bit about who you are and your Auburn story. And because you authored a book on George Petrie, I'd like to be able to hear a little history about George and maybe what helped catapult that creed into who he is as a person. Mike, please share.
I came to Auburn in the late 70s. I'd always been an Auburn fan. Graduated in 80. I went into graduate school immediately and went on and got a master's degree in history and stayed in Auburn and worked for the university, first for the News Bureau, and then for the Alumni Association many years before retiring in 2004 and moving to Grand Cayman, which seemed like a wonderful idea at the time. And 3 weeks after I got there, Hurricane Ivan hit the island. And so I eventually was blown back. And when I came back, I decided to write a book. And that book turned out to be Auburn Man, The Life and Times of George Petrie. And I had known for some time that Petrie had left a tremendous number of documents in the collection and the archives. There had been a thesis done on him, but there had never been a book written about him. And there was certainly plenty of material for a book. And so I spent a year, roughly 9 months writing the book, and then, roughly another 3 months or so getting it into publication. And it was a labor of love, something I really thought that needed to be done. The role that George Petrie played on Auburn was tremendous, and I don't think a lot of people really realize that the modern Auburn really owes so much to George Petrie, because he really did shape what Auburn became, probably more than any other individual in its history.
What we have there, we're showing some slides. If you don't mind expanding on George Petrie and again, what that impact is as you see it.
Well, first, a little history of the Creed. Petrie retired during World War II in 1943 after a 50-year career at Auburn. He had risen as far as dean of basically what would be dean of liberal arts today. He had a couple of opportunities to become president and turned them down because he wanted to stay in teaching. And so he retired, and he wrote the Auburn Creed in November of 1943. And the original, which you may show in just a second, the original draft of that creed is still in his collection at Auburn in the archives, where he wrote it out in longhand and edited it in longhand. He didn't make very many edits, so you can tell that it came, pretty much from the heart when he wrote it. But it's really his philosophy more than anything else, and what he thought it took and what he had taught his students made Auburn men and women. So he put a lot of himself into that creed. There's not any real evidence of why he wrote it. There's a couple of stories about why he wrote it that try to explain. One of them is that that the students went to the president at that time, who was been Ralph Drawn, and Drawn was one of Petrie's former students, like several Auburn presidents. And Drawn told the students they wanted to somehow write about what embodied the Auburn spirit. And Drawn told the students to go and talk to Petrie, and Petrie wrote the creed as a result of that. But there's a lot of problems with that story. Drawn wasn't the president, actually, at the time that happened. He became president later in 1948. And there's some other inaccuracies which make that story somewhat questionable. The other story is that during the war, that the co-eds were pretty depressed in 1943. The war had not gone terribly well. Most of the men on campus were going into the Army or military, and that Dean Speidel, who was the dean of home economics, asked Petrie to come out of his retirement and come make a speech that would help the morale of the co-eds. And that during that speech, he revealed the Auburn Creed. But once again, there's no historical document record of him actually doing that. And there's several accounts of that meeting that don't mention the creed. And so the creed makes its first appearance a couple of months later in January of 1944, when it's printed in the Auburn Plainsman, and basically just presented as, here is a creed for Auburn students to live by, with no explanation of where it came from or why it was written. And that pretty much was it for the creed for many, many years, until really in the 60s, 70s, the creed was sort of unearthed, and the university started using it much more extensively. And of course, today, it is probably the centerpiece. And it's the only document like that I was able to find that a university in the United States has. No other university has anything like it. So it's a remarkable document, and it has a mystery history. And so it has everything that you need to have a story.
That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing. We're fortunate to have you on the show that can tell us that history and that background. Yes, you're right. It's relevant from the 60s and on. As a matter of fact, we have two individuals today, Cole and Curry, that will be talking about the impact that creed had on them as students, and how it's impacted their personal lives as well. And so why don't we go into that? Cole, I would love to hear about your story, your Auburn story, and then if you can share with us what aspect of the creed or what line of the creed do you identify with most?
So, Eddie, thank you for being here. I am just honored and humbled, really, that I got asked to be on the show with these two other gentlemen and you as well. And so, your question was to talk about what line of the creed that I identify with and kind of helps me to go on and what kind of embolizes or symbolizes the things that I hold on to. And it's very hard because there's there's 9 different lines uh, that, well, a little bit more than 9 lines that say things that are so powerful and prove to be true again and again in different areas of life, not just for my Auburn story, but you asked about my Auburn story, and so let me tell you a little bit about that. And in 2015, I graduated from high school, came to Auburn, and began my Auburn, I guess, career as a student. And so my parents both went to Auburn and graduated in '92. And so I've always known that I was going to Auburn. It was just made up in my mind that I'm going to go to Auburn, and I suppose that means that, also I'm going to be part of the Auburn family. And so to answer the other part of your question, well, let me finish a little bit of the story. So I came with hopes to be an engineer, and I figured out pretty quickly that maybe I'm not an engineer, and so changed to a major that let me be outside and deal with the things I'm passionate about science, about nature, about problem solving, but had me be outside. And so I was a geology major for, let's see, 2 years, and then between my junior and senior year, I went on a field trip called Field Studies, and during the trip, we were looking at rocks on the side of a road, and a car ran off the road and ran over another student and then hit myself. We were both airlifted to UAB Medical Center there in Birmingham. This was in Glencoe, Alabama, where the accident happened. And so after we were airlifted to UAB, the doctors told my parents, they said, he is not presenting well. So presenting means how you appear medically to the doctors. And I kind of make the joke, I've never been a good presenter. But anyways, so the doctors told my parents, they said, he won't wake up, or it's very unlikely, and it would be more humane to pull the plug. And they prayed about it, and they said, that's not giving God a chance to, pull him through this, and it's not giving him a chance. And so they decided to continue on with services. And around 3.5 weeks later, I woke up. Well, I opened my eyes, and there you see my sister with me when I opened my eyes. And then I was moved to Shepherd Center Rehabilitation Hospital, and I had members of the Auburn family come and greet me, and I was supported even though I was not in Auburn. I was surrounded by the Auburn family, and as you can see, there was a little bit of the rehabilitation that I underwent at Shepherd Center Hospital, and I was pretty mobile. I mean, I was in ROTC, so would consider myself to be, I would have considered myself to be a somewhat fit individual, and then I got reduced down to the level that you saw. And so day by day, God has just healed me to be back in where I am. And as you can see, there's some pictures, with my ROTC family, as well as some of the family from my hometown, and just all of the love and support that has gone into my story. And I am forgetting to talk about the part of the, not forgetting, however, I am delaying the part about talking about the creed. And so one of the lines that sticks out to me in the creed, let me read this so I get it correct.
Sure.
It talks about, I believe in a sound mind, in a sound body, in a spirit that is not afraid. So, first of all, it says, I believe. And so the Auburn Creed says, I believe 9 times.
Mm-hmm.
And so, therefore, I was like, okay, what does it mean to believe? And I looked up the definition. And to believe means to have a firm conviction as to the goodness, efficacy, or ability of something. And so, believing is to hold true in your heart and your mind that something is a given. Like, I believe in the theory of gravity. It has proven true again and again and again. And so to believe these things is to hold them true and to act as if they're true. And so I was not always able to have a sound mind, a sound body. And well, that doesn't leave you with too many options. So therefore, a spirit that is not afraid, I had to be given one. And I was given one by God and by all of the prayers that were said on my behalf. And I am just so thankful that I was given those. And
so I think it's remarkable that you have been able to move to where you are now, that you have had the community, the Auburn community, your family, all of those individuals, but that you are still able to identify with that creed as that one line that has given you hope as well. And that's the beauty that Mike was just talking about earlier. One individual took his core beliefs, put it out there, it was penned, and all of us now find something that we can relate to, that we can identify with. And I'm a fan of yours, Cole. I think you pushing through the way that you have, and to see you here today talking to us about that, it really is inspiring. Thank you for sharing that story. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate it.
Curry, let's talk about you. You've got an interesting story as well. Please share a little bit about yourself, as well as just how the creed has played into your life. And there's a personal story behind that as well. So please tell us.
Definitely, Eddie, and I want to echo Cole's sentiments, and I'm just honored to be on here with these two gentlemen, and always humbled when my alma mater calls on me to be of service in any way. So War Eagle to everyone, and I'm so excited to be here. So just a little bit about my Auburn journey and my story. I'm a 2018 graduate of Auburn University. Much like Cole, I always knew I wanted to go to Auburn. It's the only place I applied. I think the only place I sent my ACT scores. So really cherished my time at Auburn University. But to specifically talk about how the creed has played into my life, and specifically my journey throughout Auburn, during my sophomore year at Auburn University, as a typical student, one day I was bustling down the concourse trying to avoid everyone trying to talk to me. But one tent got my attention, and that was Be the Match, which is a national bone marrow registry. And I was just trying to shake them off, and they were just like, if you just swab and if you join the registry, you can go on your way. And I was like, sure, I'll do that. So I completed just a quick swab, and they sent my my test off to join the registry. And I really didn't think anything else of it until the following year. I was actually walking into the library to study for finals, and I got a call from Be the Match stating that they believed that I was potentially someone's best match for a bone marrow transplant. And, you know, when you get those words, it's sort of a shock because, you know, as I said, I really didn't think I'd ever hear from Be the Match ever. But I was telling everybody, you know, I have such a high regard of Be the Match as a national bone marrow registry, because I never felt in any way pressured by them to go on this journey. And at every step of the way, they were holding my hand. So I really cannot say enough about this organization. But through some further testing, it was discerned that I was this individual's best potential match when comparing those on the registry to his bodily makeup. And at this point, I was able to learn a little bit more about my specific recipient. He was a young man in Paris, France, who was 23 years old, so similar to my age. And he was suffering from acute myelogenous leukemia. And so the pictures that you're seeing, I was actually flown to Washington, D.C. I got to spend New Year's there with family. And on January 3rd, 2017, I was actually able to donate peripheral stem cells to then go to this young man in Paris. And that is physically what I was donating to him that I'm holding there. So, you know, whenever I tell this story, I never want to come across as, you know, this was all me, because there were so many players in this whole thing, and I was just a small part of that. And I really used my experience to really be a voice for Be the Match, and really encouraging people to sign up for the registry. So, you know, I forced a lot of my buddies to sign up because it's so easy. You can literally do it online. You can go on their website and type in your address, and they'll send you the swab, and you just send a pre-postmarked envelope back. So it's painless, it's free. So I encourage anyone out there listening to this to go ahead and sign up for the registry, because you never know when it could impact someone's life in a positive way. And Eddie, to speak on what verse or what line of the creed really speaks to me the most, I think it would have to be, I believe in the human touch, which cultivates sympathy with my fellow men and mutual helpfulness and brings happiness for all. And, you know, I really think that line of the creed fully encapsulates the experience that I had, and really encapsulates really Auburn men and women all over the world. And I really think something that we all strive to live for and live by, and definitely something that I think anyone in Be the Match certainly exemplifies as that line of the creed. And I'm happy to say that since I've left Auburn, there have been fellow members of the Auburn family to go on the donation journey. And I've been excited to follow along with them throughout their journey as well, and really encourage and support in any way that I can. So yeah, it was such a blessing for my life. And when I look back and reflect, I'm so thankful that the Lord chose me to go on that journey. And so really just a blessing.
Once again, thank you. Thank you for sharing. In a few minutes, we'll talk about you also being the honoree of Be the Creed ceremony, which will be taking place later on today, and more to come on that. But before we move any further, I do want to give some shout outs, as we usually do in this show. Nancy Rush Wells says that she's watching in War Eagle. Dave Gamble says, tuned in, War Eagle. Thank you, Dave. Dana Burton says, good job, Cole. Deborah Lee Walters says, Cole, I have followed your journey. So good to see you doing well. Nelda Lee says, War Eagle, love the history of the Creed and George Petrie. Thanks, Mike Jernigan. And Barry Russell says, great job, Cole Burton. Gentlemen, there is something again, very unique. I think of other individuals that stand out, like George Petrie, that have written books, complete books, except that what we have here is just an individual that shared his core beliefs and put that into paper, and that over time the community has accepted. And Mike, I really think that the book, I have it behind me, was a great book. It's a book that we are making available to those who would be interested in purchasing that book, The Auburn Man. You can go to a link, and we'll share it in a few minutes, that will give you a discount if you're interested in picking that up, so that you can learn more. There it is, that you can learn more about that. The Auburn Man, The Life and Times of George Petrie at aub.ie/Auburn Man. Use promo code 1856 and you'll get 5% off discount for purchasing that book. Curry, tell us about that ceremony. give us a little sense of what is to come later on this afternoon for the Be the Creed ceremony.
Definitely. So the Be the Creed ceremony was such a joyous event, and the way that it's structured is that employees or faculty of Auburn University all have the opportunity to nominate the Be the Creed nominees. And so we all gathered, me and my fellow nominees for the 2017 award, all gathered in the Alumni Center. And everyone's nominator came, and there's a picture with Dr. Woodard and Haven and Nick. So I know all those folks from the Office of Student Affairs. So, so it's a great event. I think my family members were there as well. We had some hors d'oeuvres and such, and we were all gathered together, and they did a short little spiel about, you know, the Auburn Creed and George Petrie and what it really meant to Auburn, men and women all over the world. And then, you know, they announced the Be the Creed honoree in 2017, and I happened to be that individual, but there were so many outstanding candidates that were nominated that year. It really is just a testament to the Auburn family and the quality of people that come through our university. So, but all in all, just a wonderful event, and just another opportunity for me to speak highly about my university, and just the testament to Auburn and their willingness to do that for students. I think it really speaks to their commitment to living out the creed and really pursuing, I guess, the creed throughout one's education at Auburn. So it's a great event, and I look forward to tuning in this afternoon and seeing all the nominees and seeing who takes home the trophy this year.
Thank you for sharing that. Elizabeth Ponder says, so glad I tuned in for all of you. We love real stories about living out the Auburn Creed. Mike, we've got about 3 minutes left, or a couple of minutes left. Is there anything that you want to leave us with that we may have missed that you'd like to share with regards to George Petrie in the next minute or two?
Well, there's so many stories about Petrie that are wonderful stories, and but one thing that stands out was that Alabama, the University of Alabama, where one of his former students was a dean, the new president of Alabama, Denny, who Denny Chimes is named for, they realized how important George Petrie was to Auburn, and they actually plotted at one point to lure him to Alabama. They wanted Alabama to be the liberal arts school, and they were disturbed that Petrie was establishing such a reputation at Auburn for the arts, for humanities, for history, that they decided that they would lure him away, and that Auburn would therefore be an engineering school and a mechanical school, and that Alabama would dominate the other areas. And so they did their best to make him an offer that he couldn't refuse, and he refused them. And because he did, Auburn continued to develop in what the Alabama people described in its own peculiar way. And so the modern Auburn University, which is a comprehensive university, again, owes a lot of that to George Petrie.
Well said. Thank you so much. The Auburn Alumni Association is proud of the work that all of you are doing. And we benefit greatly from your stories, from the history that you've shared, as well as the personal impact that the Creed has had on you. Thank you for joining us today. Tune in later today in our Facebook page at 1 o'clock for the live viewing of Be the Creed ceremony. Until next time, stay safe and War Eagle.